Yeah, let's begin, because I guess it's Friday and you want to have some beer or maybe go to your families. So let's make it not quick, but relatively quick. So my name is Andrey, and do you see this well? Yeah. I am a developer. I'm a software developer. I always position myself as a developer. But in the last few years, maybe like 6, 7 years, I'm actually implementing a lot of automation, and I'm helping companies to implement software delivery pipelines, automation and infrastructure and similar stuff. So some people actually call me a DevOps guy, but I don't really like that name. I don't really like this title. I am a developer. I write code, and I'm approaching everything that I do from code perspective. I'm also training sometimes for different companies, and I'm speaking, like now. And back in my hometown, which is Riga, Latvia, it's in the Baltics, for those who don't know, I'm also organizing 2 things. One is Latcraft, which is Latvian software craftsmanship community. Another one is Devternity, which is another conference which happens in December. But we're here to talk about DevOps. How many of you are familiar with the term? I guess most of you, right? Nice. How many of you actually use some of the DevOps tools? Oh, some of you. OK. Yes, I just forgot to mention that. We're going to play a game in the end. And the prize for the game is this nice book. So stay with me. Bear with me. Also, there will be like a mini game within the presentation, but it's not. There's no game, but the prize will be in the final game where you get this book, one of those, one of you. Okay, so yeah, DevOps tools. We've probably heard of some of the names. Can you actually give me some names of those tools? Jenkins, Bamboo, TeamCity. Okay, you give me CI servers. What else? Yeah, to some extent, yes. Maven, Gradle, Docker. Make can also be a DevOps tool, kind of. Bash, exactly, or even PowerShell. They also call it Posh, like PowerShell. Ansible as well, Ansible, Puppet, Chef. Actually, there's a huge amount of those tools. All of them can be considered like something that is related to DevOps. And there's like people creating this periodic table of DevOps. There's a company from Netherlands, I think, Xebia, created this one. There's another one that looks like this. There's another one that looks like this. There is, well, someone taking pictures of that. But honestly, just search DevOps tools and go to the image tab in Google. You will find like tremendous amount of these pictures. They kind of make sense, but they're not really useful because you still have to select some of these tool chains. You still have to know what you're using those tools for. Yeah, I just put like 5 pictures, but trust me, there is like gazillion of them on the internet. Because it's hard. It's hard to select and find the tools and to know exactly what the tools are for you. And that's the problem. That's, of course, the problem. Yeah, just another one, sorry. Many of them. So it's an ocean of tools. And if you have been in DevOps community for a while, or if you've heard about the term, you probably also have heard that it's not about the tools. DevOps is not about the tools. Even though we call these tools DevOps tools, we have people who we call DevOps engineers. By the way, is there anybody here who actually has DevOps engineer title? One guy. And honestly, I'll explain why. But DevOps engineer as a title doesn't really make sense. I'll explain why, and mainly because it's not about the tools. It's actually about the process. It's actually about the culture. It's actually about how things are connected together, and not only things, but people are connected together. But still, a lot of people, a lot of blog posts, a lot of companies, they focus really on the tooling. But if you listen to the thought leaders in the DevOps communities, they all say it's not about the tools. Or is it? Is it about the tools? Maybe it is about. Let's look a bit into our history, like in a humankind history. What are we without our tools? If we were living in the Stone Age, no tools, no way to hunt for food or do some gatherings. If we didn't have tools, we would never develop into what we are at the moment. So things like that helped us to protect our culture, to actually stay on the same place for a while, build our families, build our cultural values, and kind of develop further. So without tools, we are nothing. And I would say that when we talk about DevOps tools, it's the wrong term, but it's well recognized. We're not talking about specific tools. We're talking about how we apply those tools and how we use those tools to actually protect our cultural values. So we use tools to protect our culture because they allow us to develop and go to the next level. For example, if we, as a humankind, as a nation, would not be able to build cities or to build, like, say, theaters, we would never jump into the next level of our cultural development. So tools really help us to go to the next level. And we always will be that discussion, like, should really focus on specific tool like Docker or Kubernetes or Ansible or Bash, or should we really think about how we apply those tools to the processes or to the tasks that we actually define? And when we're talking about like IT or software development, software delivery, it's really going to be like these two things: technology and organizational part. Let's take a look at another example. How many of you actually work in an enterprise? In a company? Well, most of you, I guess. And you probably assess the level of healthiness of your company. You know, if it's working good, if it's like we have a lot of bad stuff or good stuff happening, you know that. But we can apply the same thing to personal healthy lifestyle. So person is healthy, one like has normal weight, normal health, normal face color, and imagine that you have some health problems or some not so nice, you have an additional weight that you want to drop, and maybe you want to make more sports. So this story could be applied to anyone. And well, I actually had a friend who decided, well, I have a bit of extra weight, so I have to start running. Because everybody does run, but we know that running works. A lot of people do run. They have like much healthier bodies than my friend had. So my friend decided, okay, I'll start running. Well, this will be like on Monday, I start running and I will make my life better. The problem is that my friend he was a bit fatter than me, and I also need to start running at some point. But my friend was a bit fatter than me, and he didn't do a lot of sports for a while, and basically his body accumulated a lot of weight, but also that weight put a lot of pressure on the bones, on the skeleton. So on this perfect Monday, he put on his sports shoes and started running, and you know what? Well, he broke his leg, because so much weight was kind of putting pressure on his skeleton, on his bones, that bones were not really ready to start like responding to a bigger stress that his body get when he started running. The same could happen to the companies. If a company that has a lot of problems, a lot of like additional weight, legacy code, legacy stuff, legacy systems that are accumulating the health of that company, if they start applying some of the techniques that like DevOps is proposing, Agile, Lean, and similar techniques are proposing, they may just not work for them. And that's what happened with my friend. He also, like, running? No way. It doesn't work for me. It's not for me at all. It's for some other people, not for me. Running is bad. Running doesn't work. And some of these techniques, like DevOps, Agile, Lean, maybe some others, some companies try to apply them. They know that everybody else is doing that and everybody else is healthy, but at the same time, when you apply these techniques to a company that is not really healthy, then you may decide that it's not for me, it's not for my company, it doesn't work for me at all. But the problem is that, well, if we take a look at our health, it's not only just one thing that you should do. Actually, it should be many things that you should do in order to compose a healthy lifestyle. So things like, if you just decide not just running, but maybe walking instead, maybe use a different diet, maybe have more sleeping time, maybe mix activities, just not focus on like sitting at the same place for the whole day, maybe reduce stress, like to have some sort of peace of mind, maybe find a mentor or trainer to actually help you out with that, to applying all these activities. So, and that's what actually also applicable to a company. When you try to apply a single technique or a single tool or a single like principle, most likely it will not work. You have to apply several of them, you have to apply a combination of them, and you have to find this combination that works for you. And in some cases, it's not one thing, it's going to be something that works for you doesn't work for other people or other companies. So again, we're coming back to this tools versus culture discussion. So running is a tool. but the way you want trying to solve your problem and how to combine these things like healthy lifestyle principles to your life, that's actually a culture. That's how you combine things together. Okay, let's go back to DevOps type of things, and I would like you to show some of the dialogues that I have as a DevOps consultant with some of my clients. So imagine this simple situation. I'm asking my client, my potential client, how much time does it take to get a new virtual machine? And my client absolutely happily answers, oh, just 6 weeks, maybe another couple of weeks to get firewall sorted. And well, what can I say there? It's too long. It doesn't allow you to experiment. It doesn't allow you to go further. It actually blocks everyone in the pipeline. 8 weeks of waiting time for a person, for a project, for a company to get a new environment or at least one virtual machine, that's too much. That's obviously, and you will not solve it with a single tool. You will not solve it with Docker. You will not solve it with Kubernetes. You will not solve it with the cloud, unless you actually apply a different principle to your whole company. So this is a bottleneck. Let's solve it on a different level. Another one, well, probably a bit better discussion. I'm asking how much time does it take to actually get a new environment for your project, like a new QA environment, new testing environment, new development environment. Well, they answer me not long, maybe 2-3 days. And I mean, from my background, when I know that actually creating an environment, if everything is done in the right way, may take actually minutes, not days. I'm really surprised. And then again, it's kind of a part of the culture problem that the company may have. They think that 2-3 days is okay because they kind of used to waiting. They're used to not running. They actually used to have this big waiting times, and they think it's okay. Because you can hide some of the work, you can hide some of the problems, you can hide some of the actual big problems behind these waiting times. So 2-3 days for a new environment is too much. Another one is, I'm also doing Java training sometimes, so I get a request from a client. Can you do a Java training for us? No problem, I can do, of course. What kind of experience your developers have? And I get the answer, oh, no, it's not for developers, it's for our system administrators, and we just want them to debug our production code. I said, well, I mean, what can I say here? SysAdmins, it's a good intent. People in SysAdmin department should know how applications work. That's really DevOps approach. But when I dig deeper, I realize that the reason they want SysAdmins to debug the applications is because they don't have monitoring system, they don't have a log aggregation system, they actually have very bad application code, which is hard to understand, and they have so many integration points and have so few monitoring dashboards that, of course, they force SysAdmins to kind of also help developers, but at the same time, developers in this particular company, they were working from 9 to 5, but SysAdmins obviously were staying all night to debug the problems in production, which is not a good approach. That's the wrong solution to the actual problem. Another example. Again, we're jumping into more tooling. So I get a request. Can you actually teach us or help us with implementing Docker and Kubernetes in our software department? I said, no problem. How many apps do you have? Oh, just have one app. And it's PHP application, monolithic single PHP application. But the reason we want Docker or Kubernetes is because we don't really like our sysadmins. They are so slow delivering us the infrastructure that we want to do it ourselves. That's the wrong approach because you're trying to solve the problem which is actually inside the company. And you're trying to solve it by using a tool that may actually be useful, but in your particular situation, this particular company situation, it will be probably better to solve it on the root cause level. So instead of trying to implement Docker or Kubernetes, actually try to understand why the sysadmins are slow. And usually there's a reason for that. Usually because they probably are overloaded or they're not getting actual requirements, or the communication between inside the company is actually broken. So adding Docker or Kubernetes to the mix will not solve the problem until you really actually solve the communication issues. Okay? Because quite often, and I mean, it's not every company, but many companies I've been to, the communication looks like that. So you have devs on the one side, you have operations guys, or on the other side, they may be in different rooms, in different buildings, or even in different countries. And communication between them happens on the level of issue tracking system or some sort of additional management layer that blocks or filters anything that may be useful. And feedback is not going back. So these guys are doing some shitty apps, throwing them into operations mode without explaining a lot about how to operate on that. And they never get feedback about how bad is their application. And that's a broken cycle. Another thing I often see in big companies, especially very big companies, they try to create departments or around different things, and that's maybe logical sometimes. But in the era of DevOps, in the era of continuous delivery and fast feedback, the more borders you have between the different departments with different specialities, the harder it will be actually get the actual product to your customers, and that's a huge issue. And the funny thing is that people still believe that you can just take Docker or you can just take cloud provider of some sort, and suddenly all the problems will just go away. People still believe in magic, but obviously it's not there. You still have to do real work in order to make the communication work better. And usually it means that the company probably has a lack of culture, internal culture, but also it probably has a lack of right tooling, or the culture to apply the right tooling to the right problem. Okay, let me go back a bit in time. So, do you know 2001? It's 17 years ago. We have Agile. The Agile manifesto, I guess most of you know that, was born. And initially, Agile was applied only to software delivery, software development. It was not really applicable to infrastructure management or operations, but it was the starting point, I would say, the beginning of the century. I don't want to repeat all these principles. Yeah, it's interactions, individuals. Yeah, we have working software, customer integrated collaboration. You all know that. It's all known. So in 2003, and here we actually start a bit quiz game. Do you know who is that woman? Mary. Yes, Mary Poppendieck. She's the one who actually wrote a book about lean software development. So it's still built on the similar principles as Agile. It's built on the principles of lean manufacturing, which was kind of created in the previous century. And she kind of explained the same principles to apply them to software development. And if you look at them, they kind of expand a bit what Agile means. And there's the whole school of lean software development, which is considered to be one of the Agile ways of doing things. So, and one of the most important principles of Agile, to me at least, is eliminate waste. Eliminate waste, and another one that is the second most important is to amplify learning. All the others also are important, but eliminating waste and amplifying learning about your system, about how your team works, is definitely even more important than some of the Agile principles in general. Okay, so next year, 2008. Do you know this guy? No? Okay. Probably it's not super well known, but it's at least known in DevOps communities. His name is Andrey Shafer. At the moment, he is a CTO of Pivotal, if you know Spring and another company it's Cloud Foundry. He's the guy behind that stuff. But he was known before that. He actually worked for Puppet Labs for some time, and he is the one who introduced this term called infrastructure as code. Which kind of tried to apply, already started, applying the Agile principles, lean software development principles, to not only to the application code, but also to infrastructure. Do you know this guy? Anyone? The Belgian guy, yes. His name is Patrick Thibault. He's actually the guy who invented the term DevOps. And actually, he is working as a sysadmin. I think still working as architect and sysadmin. And he initially came up with the term called Agile infrastructure, but then later on a term DevOps came in discussions, and he is the one who invented that term. And the funny thing is that DevOps, when it was the term was pronounced and announced. there was no real definition for that. Was kind of, well, some principles were set, but Poppendieck and all the people around him actually decided to let the industry to shape the term, shape the definition for upcoming years. And that's actually what happened. And actually, that's why some of the people still don't really know what DevOps is, and it's kind of hard to find the proper definition of that. But what Poppendieck is always saying, that DevOps actually is a human problem. It's always about communication. It's always about people interacting with each other and how they interact with each other. Because, oh, sorry, it's a bit of fluid here now, but okay. So yeah, it's about interactions, even though, of course, it's also related to the tooling. And a lot of people still think that DevOps is about tools, but it's really about tools and culture. And because of the lack of definition for some time, many people think that DevOps is a different thing. There's like an old story about elephant and blind people touching elephant, different sides of the elephant, and they just say, it's DevOps, it's DevOps, it's DevOps, it's DevOps, but even though they don't really see the big picture. And if you look at the Wikipedia definition for DevOps, well, DevOps aims at shorter development cycles, increased deployment frequency, more dependable releases, in close alignment with business objectives. If you really kind of transform this to like what Agile means and what Lean means, there would be a lot of similarities. A lot of similarities. So Agile, Lean, DevOps, to me, actually, they well, not identical, but they're really, really similar. If you use like a mathematical term, I would say they are isomorphic to some extent. So 2010, do you know this guy? Probably not. Sorry? No, it will be the next one. Well, this guy is John Willis. He was leading the podcast about DevOps for some time, and he also, I think now he worked in Docker. He worked also in some other companies. But what he's known for, he came up with this term, and I think this is the best definition you can have for DevOps. DevOps equals CAMS. CAMS means culture, automation, measurement, and sharing. And culture, of course, we have to have a common culture. Automation, we have to automate everything we can. And we have to measure our process. We have to monitor our systems, measure the development cycle, basically do everything. And of course, all of that should be shared. The culture, automation, and measurement. Okay, 2013. Do you know this guy? Jim Keane. He's the guy who actually wrote a book. Well, he's one of the authors of the Phoenix Project. Have you heard about this book? Some of you? Okay, if you haven't heard about this book, it's actually a very good read. Find it, the Phoenix Project. Find it, read it. It's really cool. I mean, it's a fictional literature. It's not real, like it isn't a technical one. So but it's at the same time has some technical terms inside. Okay, and what Jim Keane defined in the Phoenix Project, and I'm getting a few blog posts of him, is the 3 ways of DevOps. And basically the idea is that we have to apply the system thinking, so we have to see from where our code is coming, from where our application is coming, where it's deployed. So we think not just in our departments, we don't have a local thinking, we actually have a system thinking, applying it to the whole product that we deliver. Also, we have to amplify the feedback, so it's not just one-way delivery, it's actually understanding what happened and why it happened and what we can do to improve it. And also have to facilitate the continual experimentation and learning. And if you look at what Lean actually means and what Agile kind of promoted, it's kind of the same thing. It's very, very similar to that. We're still trying, to minimize the feedback cycle. We have to amplify feedback, to minimize the waste. All of these principles, even though they're not said explicitly, still they're really, really similar. So yeah, we're going a bit backwards to 2011. You know that guy, right? It's Jez Humble. And Jez Humble, together with Dave Farley, they wrote a book called Continuous Delivery. And these are the principles of continuous delivery. Build quality in, work in small batches, computers perform repetitive tasks, so automation. We try to continuously improve. So this is something that you would find in DevOps, in 3 ways of DevOps and in Lean the definitions. And everyone is responsible, so shared responsibility. So CAMS kind of also here. So if you think about it, all these principles, even though they came from different people from different times and different backgrounds, they still have the same kind of approach. We try to build better software. We try to build it faster, and we try to build it, and we try to learn as much as we can from that process. Okay, one thing that came up like last year, I mean, it's still the same thing, and it's nothing really like extra new, but something that I really like at the moment. It's not something I actually did even before I knew the term. It's called GitOps. So you probably know that continuous delivery is mostly it's about code. We store all the code for our pipeline, for our continuous delivery pipeline in version control, or Git, which is probably the default version control for many of you. And the idea of GitOps is again, it's the same thing that you do with continuous delivery and with DevOps and with lean software development, just it's more tool specific at this point. Because Git, or version control in general, becomes the single source of truth for any kind of processes you have in your company. So all your code becomes the only thing you need to actually reproduce any infrastructure, any applications, any like business knowledge that you might have in your company. Git, or version control, is the single source of truth for anything. And it's also called operations by pull requests. So instead of waiting or writing emails or creating an issue tracking, an issue in the issue tracking system, you actually just change the code. If you need to change, like, I don't know, LDAP settings or mail settings or deploy a new application or create a new server, instead of waiting and asking and going through a huge amount of management type of tooling, you actually just go and do a commit to a pull request into Git repository. That's really cool. And I mean, it requires a bit of cultural change, cultural shift, but also it requires a lot of tooling around that. And it's there now. In 2018, it is there. Let's look at that in a bit different perspective now. So let's see, well, what does it mean to have the right culture? What does it mean to have the right people? And who do we actually need in order to like be considered like a DevOps kind of company, or continuous delivery company, or some sort of that, or Agile lean kind of company? Well, I think what we need is a T-shaped people. Have you heard about this term? Some of you? Yeah, basically, for those who don't, it means that you have a broad understanding of how everything works, so sharing the culture, sharing the understanding, but at the same time you have deep knowledge in certain speciality, like you're sysadmin, or you're a designer, or you're a developer, or you're a manager. You still have deep knowledge of that, but at the same time you know what happens around you. There's a funny tweet about that. So yeah, this is the classical T-shaped person, but most likely you will end up being something like that, like in the last picture, because you may know some other fields as well, right? But yeah, the model is like that. The model is simple. Model is T-shaped. Another thing that is quite important when you think about how do you actually work together, and it's also part of the culture. It's also important to understand how do you plan stuff, how do you implement the plans after you plant that. Again, I was showing you this guy before, Jim Kim. In around, I think 2006 or 7, he came up with this nice blog post about unplanned work, because well, when we talk about developers, when developing an application, we more or less, we plan ahead what we're doing. We have small iterations, we know how to deliver code. But if we talk about operations work, or things that are running in production, things may go quite differently. And if our development department is delivering code at the same time, at the same rate, more or less, but at the same time, we have a lot of failed things, or things that have to be changed, or things that have just done manually or incorrectly. This, of course, increases the amount of unplanned work that developers should do, managers should do, operations should do, and of course, you don't want to be in that point, because after that point, it's a dead end. It's nothing. It's the end of the world, because most likely you're spending more time than you actually have. And obviously, in order to make it work better, you have to optimize your processes, create a pipeline, select better tooling, make better planning, make more agreements about how you do things, and allow those things to be changed within that pipeline. And then, of course, if the number of failure changes is going down, obviously, the amount of unplanned work is going down as well. And don't get me wrong, it's impossible to get away from unplanned work. Sometimes it will happen. But if you have certain things that you can plan ahead, or things that you can avoid, making them within the same pipeline, then you will actually reduce that amount. And this is, of course, the work for managers and team leads to keep control of how much unplanned work we actually have. Another thing that kind of influences the unplanned work is the number of unique configurations you have in your system. And that could be anything. It could be a number of operating systems that you use. If inside a company you're using Red Hat or Ubuntu or Windows and Mac OS at the same time, then the level of mastery you can apply to each of those configurations is obviously dropping. You can't really be master in everything. You can only be master in certain things. But also this applies to the number of unique environments that you have. If you're still configuring your environments, your servers manually, then each of them ends up being unique. And of course, when you have to go and change some of them, then you have to have this discovery process, learning process, and to understand what's happening with those servers and fix the problem. And of course, the success rate, the change success rate, will definitely be dropping if you keep increasing these unique configurations. And this, of course, will influence the amount of unplanned work. Obviously, if you try to reduce the amount of things that you have, the amount of systems you have to support, amount of programming language versions you have to support, amount of unique environments you have to support, then obviously you will be more. You can apply bigger mastery level to each of these configurations, and that will definitely lead to a decrease of unplanned work. That's kind of an important thing. Do you know this woman? It actually she appeared not that far ago on the scene of DevOps. Her name is Dominica DeGrandis, and she has and actually this is the book I want to give you, and the last final challenge. It's her book, and I mean she doesn't really talk too much about like new stuff. She actually has this book is a really good summary of how you should plan your work, and what things should be visible for you. And what I really like inside this book is how she defines what is stealing your time. What are the things that don't allow you to focus on the right things? And that's part of the company culture that you should kind of grow in order to actually focus on the things that are right for the product, for the company. So time thieves are like unplanned work that kind of ignored, unknown dependencies, and this kind of came hand in hand with the number of unique configurations that you might have. Conflicting priorities. Have you ever worked in a company which has like 30 projects? Yeah, I've worked with this kind of companies as well, and that's, of course, that's unrealistic. And until you understand that you don't have enough resources to work on everything at the same time, you actually have to kind of limit that. And this is one of the ways to actually to restore your time if you find it out. If you actually try to limit the number of priorities in the pipeline. And of course, if you have too much work in progress, obviously, this also doesn't allow you to complete things. And this is like a principle of Kanban. Start finishing, stop starting. If you have too many things in a starting mode and not completed, you don't really produce value. And if you don't produce value, there's a delay, there's a problem, there's like a lot of invisible work coming out. It will not allow you to perform as a company. And it's kind of surprising that still many companies, many teams are focusing on the tooling instead of trying to at least try to optimize what they're actually working on. Because in many cases that will make they will make them more efficient than applying, for example, Docker to their pipelines. And the main advice here: try to reduce the work in progress, because if it's too big, you're not really producing value for a long time. And there's one thing that probably, when we do the planning, you should say more, is the word no. You shouldn't accept more work. You actually should say no to your manager, no to your customer, if it doesn't allow you to complete the work. So it's much more important to complete things rather than to start things. Okay? How much time do I have? 5 minutes. Okay, not that much. Yeah. Another guy, I'll show you the name, you probably don't know him. He's Matthew Skelton. He is also a DevOps consultant, and he came up with this nice topology of things that DevOps teams or DevOps companies are trying to apply. And I will not go too deep into that. You can actually find all this information on his site, devopstopologies.com, where he describes all these different types of collaboration in a DevOps team. One of them, of course, is like classical one, where we have devs and ops, and we have a collaboration between them, which works. Another one is like this one. I will not go too deep into that. Trust me, it's worth reading. And I mentioned only 5 types on my slides. But if you go to devopstopologies.com, you will find 9 types. And 7 or 8 antitypes, which is very interesting to read. But I would like to focus on a more important thing, maybe, because I still remember my first slides about the ocean of tools we have. So what actually, how do we make a decision which tool to use? Do you know this guy? Someone? No. It's Neil Ford. He works for ThoughtWorks, and he's one of the persons who actually introduced the so-called technology radar. Have you heard of that? Yeah, technology radar, and he's not the inventor of that, but he's the one who's promoting that a lot. And he has also this picture of innovation curve, or where you can be as a company selecting certain tools. In order to understand where you are, or to make a decision to where to go, you can use this technology radar. And ThoughtWorks as a company, they release this technology radar twice a year, but you have to understand that this technology radar is applied to the technologies that ThoughtWorks is using. And you as a company, you as a team, potentially should make your own radar with all technologies that you use in your company, in your project, and decide which technologies you should assess, which technologies you should remove, which technologies you should try, which technologies you should adopt. And that's the point of the radar, to stay, to understand what is going on outside, what we're doing inside the company, and what we should do next. And creating actually, I have my own radar, but it's not really on the picture. But I really have it in my head about technologies, what I want to use, which I don't want to use, which I want to actually throw away. And you as a company, as a team, should probably do the same, because it's really helpful to see where you're going. And what's the next thing? What's the recommendation of using the next tool? And if you use this kind of scientific approach to tool selection, you will feel much easier and much simpler to make a decision which tool you want to use. So yeah, this is a typical quadrant for this radar. They select different techniques, like for example Agile, Lean, or certain things, tooling, languages and framework, and the platforms like Amazon, for example, Amazon Web Services. And in each of this quadrant, you would find these several layers of things that the further they're away from the center, the less kind of important they are. And like the last one is like hold means don't use this technology. Assess means try to understand what are the possibilities. Trial, actually make it try to use it. And adopt means use it now and only. And yeah, for different times they have different locations. And the triangle means that technology has moved from the previous radar, and circle means that it stayed in the same place. Okay. That's actually another nice phrase that Neil Ford is mentioning quite often, and that actually can be applied to the level of the situation that happens in many different companies. So we have a lot of tools, we have a lot of techniques, and the future is here, but it's just not evenly distributed among different companies. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm close to the end. So another good way, actually, to how to visualize the technology or the technique movement, where the industry actually is going, is using the techniques specified by this guy. Do you know this guy? Well, his name is Simon Wardley. Actually, quite smart guy. You just find him on the internet, you see the videos from him. He's really, really smart. And what he's proposing is to actually use maps in order to visualize where we are going, where we are at the moment, where we're going. Well, it's not just any map. It's actually it has the maps that he proposes. It has very big similarity with geographical maps, where the position of the elements and the location of them and the structure of the map is quite important. So if, for example, if you're on a geographical map, if you move France close to Italy, it will change the meaning of the map. So on the maps that he creates, it also kind of makes the difference. If you move things around, it will change the context, it will change the meaning. And basically, this is kind of maps that he creates. So this axis, the vertical axis, is the value chain that we have, things that we see in our company, so things that we don't see in our company. Like invisible means that we use, let's say, platforms, we use our hardware, we use infrastructure, we use techniques which are not visible to the customers, but of course they're visible to us. And the more visible they are, the more closer they are to the top, the more visible they are to our customers. And here on this, on horizontal axis, we have the level of maturity of or the level of adaptation of that technology or that part of our company, saying that this is like on the beginning, we have a product or technology or a thing or certain technique that is customly developed. We are kind of in a product type of period where we can probably even buy this technology or assess the technology easier, and we kind of also. This is the cheapest one, the most evolved one we actually can get it as a service from some provider and don't really focus on doing this something by ourselves. So what happens? Well, if you read this graph, basically it says where we are currently with our legacy stuff and where we are currently with techniques that we kind of implement, and also it shows what kind of components. Like for example, DevOps practices. At some point they were at this level. Then we kind of had our own custom DevOps tooling. Then at some point, and that happens now for certain companies, we moved to DevOps being a product, being an internal product that can be used easily with tools defined by the company. But eventually, and this will happen quite soon, I would say, for some companies, DevOps, like tooling, DevOps automation, like different continuous delivery things, they will actually become a commodity. So you will not even consider building them yourself. You'll actually buy them from cloud providers like Azure or from Amazon, you will not need that. So actually realizing that where you are as a company and where the industry is moving, that could be a good way to understand which tools to choose, which techniques to choose, and where to go. And this is one of the examples of it's not really fully a map, but it's very similar. So it's like about where you are on cloud native implementation, and this is kind of the goal, where you want to be in different techniques, and this is where you are at the moment as a company. And you can do this kind of things for yourself as well, obviously. Okay, so final words from me, and then we go to the game. Then we go to the fun part. The most important thing is actually you want to try to make your directions and planning of what you're doing, where you're going, as visible as possible. Also make the progress of your work as visible as possible. So use radars, use maps, use boards, Kanban boards, to actually visualize that somehow. Use version control repositories or Git to make that be the single source of truth for your processes, for your code delivery, for your applications. Use pipelines, of course, with continuous delivery to make all this code to be automatically deployed to the target environments and allow you to scale it quickly. And just remember that tools do not matter that much, but the way you glue them together, the way you enforce the use of the tool is the way you actually help develop your culture. And everything is code. IT is code. We are all contributors to that code base, and we're all collaborators. So thank you very much. So, do you want to play? Do you know this, Kahoot? Some of you? Okay. For those who don't know, you have to go to kahoot.it and have this nice music here. And you have to enter this PIN code in order to get into the game. So just use any browser. You can use it on a computer. You can use it on your mobile device. Kahoot.it, PIN code, and enter some name which you can use to recognize you. And the one who gets the biggest number of points will get a book. Okay? It's probably... Yeah. Okay, 27 players. Are we waiting with someone else?
Whoever's not playing can pick a favorite from the list. So
are we done? 40 people, 41, 42, 45, okay. Actually, it's a good way to count people in the audience. 46, 47, 48. You can actually try to join from 2 devices if you want, but it's not practical. 49, 48.
Watch out, it's the Facebook trend.
Okay, I guess I'm starting. Okay, I'll start the game. So 5 questions, very simple ones. I will also check if you listen to me. Who is the author of the term DevOps? And you have 20 seconds to reply. Just select the color on your phone. 42. Someone is still thinking. 43. Yes, it's Patrick Dubois. He's the one who invented the term. Not Jim Kim, not Andrey Shafer, not John Willis, but Patrick Dubois. Okay, DevMox is winning. And in this game, it's important to be correct, and also it's important to be fast. The points basically are the number of milliseconds it took to actually get the answer. Okay? Ready for the next one? What does CAMS stand for? Faster, faster, faster. Okay. Yeah, it's culture, automation, measurement, and sharing. And yeah, all other answers are not correct. Okay, question number, well, DevMox. DevMox is leading. So, question number 3. Tricky one. Actually, all answers were correct. So it was about the speed, really. You have to be fast.
May I please notice that we had 49 answers from 48 users?
Well, probably somebody is using 2 devices. It's possible as well. Okay, yeah, DevMox is the fastest so far. Okay, the fourth question is, where should you search for the single source of truth? We have 50 answers now. Yes, of course, it's the version control system. Some may think it is 42, but it's still the version control system should become the single source of truth for you. Okay, and the last question, and it's about the speed, remember? Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay.
Come on, all hackers in the room, we can reach 101.
And there's only one answer, of course. Well, 3 people didn't like it, but you lose the chance to win a book. Okay, so DevMox, who are you? You get the book. Congratulations. Okay, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, now it's the word for organizers.
Thank you, Andrey. Thank you again, right? Come on, everybody except DevMox. Yes, this means losing with grace. Excellent, excellent work.